Hey everybody, Dan Murrell here with my review of two films that are hitting theaters this weekend, just in time for Memorial Day. If you want to hit the box office, I think you've got a few great options in front of you between Aladdin and the two films that I'm reviewing right today, Booksmart and Brightburn. And I have to start with my favorite out of all of these three, which is Olivia Wilde's directorial debut, Booksmart. This is a really, really funny comedy, one of my favorite comedies of the year, and I think it's really going to be a big hit with a lot of people. As I mentioned, this is the feature directorial debut of Olivia Wilde, who has mostly been known for acting up until now. It comes from a script credited to four screenwriters, including Susanna Fogel, Emily Halpern, Sarah Haskins, and Katie Silberman, and it stars Caitlin Dever and Benny Feldstein as Amy and Molly, two graduating high school seniors who realize that they focused everything in 4 years worth of school into academics and didn't think about having any kind of fun. So they decide to devote 4 years worth of partying, focus it into one night, and get it all done the night before graduation. It's a concept that's familiar to anyone that's done a high school comedy or seen a coming of age film like this, but it's not just about the concept, it's about the execution. And the execution of this movie was really, really, really well done. Starting, of course, with Caitlin Dever and Benny Feldstein in the leads. They give Amy and Molly a really lived-in feel, a lived-in friendship. You don't believe that they're friends because the movie tells you that they are. You actually feel like these are two well-developed high school girls that have been friends for years. A lot of that is the acting, and a lot of that is the writing. The screenplay for this film is really, really, really sharp and funny. It doesn't feel like it's pandering to younger kids, but it also doesn't feel like it's above the heads of people in an older audience. Someone like me, it's been almost 20 years since I graduated from high school, and I found it just as funny as I'm sure a lot of the younger people in the theater with me did. The other thing that this movie has going for it is I really believe that this movie will become like Clueless and Dazed and Confused and Empire Records were for people of my generation. One of those movies where you look at the cast of this film in 5 or 10 or 15 years and really see that it is a who's who of future stars, because there are so many great supporting performances in this movie from actors like Billy Lord, who plays Gigi, who's this kind of crazy kind of psycho person that keeps popping up everywhere. She was the standout supporting performance in the film for me. I thought she was hilarious. I really love what Billy Lord did in this movie. You also have Skylar Gisondo, Mason Gooding, Noah Galvin, and Austin Crute, all fairly newcomers to the scene that turn in great performances as fellow classmates over the course of the night. On the other side, you have some comedians that are coming in supporting roles that hit their parts really well. Jessica Williams as as the cool teacher in the school. Jason Sudeikis as the school principal. Will Forte and Lisa Kudrow as Amy's parents all come in for a few short scenes, but really make the most of the screen time that they're given. And yeah, I know it sounds weird to say it about a comedy, but the best thing about Booksmart is that it's really, really funny, and it uses the conventions of the teen comedy in ways that are not so surprising. You have the foul mouth, the language, and a couple of gross out gags that don't really go so far over the top, the kinds of things that you would expect in a movie like this, but you also have some really great character-based humor. A lot of the humor in this film grows out of the characters, out of their interactions, out of things that are established between them, and so the movie gets deeper and funnier as you go, which is great because it doesn't mean that it's just a bunch of surface-level gags that are hit or miss and you're sitting there just kind of waiting for the next punchline. They really do grow and develop these characters, the relationships between them, what they want, what they're afraid of, their fears. It's able to balance all of these into a really cool picture of these two friends and their last night in high school. Another thing that I really, really liked about this movie is that it looks great. And I know it's so weird to give credit to a movie because a comedy is funny or because a movie looks great, but there's a lot of comedies that aren't funny, and there's even more comedies out there right now that don't look great. They look like TV shows, brightly lit so that they can shoot from a lot of different angles, not a lot of style to them. Olivia Wilde in the director's chair and Jason McCormick, the cinematographer, really gave this movie a great look. It feels very warm. I don't know, and I tried to find out if it was shot on film. I'm not sure if it was, but it looks like it was. And it's proof that you can make a movie for cheap that doesn't look cheap. I feel like the look of this film, the warmth and the depth of it, the vibrance of a lot of its colors, even just things like the focus, what they choose to keep the foreground and the background in focus. It's a really good looking and well constructed and made film, in addition to being a really funny film. A lot of times you'll get a film that has a few of those elements, but not all of them. Booksmart has all of those elements. And another thing that I really liked about it in the character of Amy, played by Caitlin Dever, is that she is a high school senior struggling with her sexuality, or not struggling with her sexuality. I like that she is gay in this film, but she's not struggling with being gay. She's not questioning her sexual identity. Not that that's bad. There was a movie called Love, Simon that came out last year that was a wonderful comedy about a high schooler struggling with coming out and whether to come out as gay. But I love the fact that they took the character of Amy in this film and didn't project that onto her. She's just a high school senior who's gay, who's just as obsessed with getting laid as the cinematic male straight counterparts have been in so many other high school coming of age films. And I like the fact that that is being mainstreamed and accepted into films like this progressively more and more as the years go on, because it is a reflection of what real life is like out there. And it shouldn't necessarily be an issue in every film in which it appears. So that's an aspect of the film that I really, really liked. When it comes down to it, I really do think that Booksmart is one of those rare films that comes along every 5 years or so, along the lines of a Fast Times at Ridgemont High or Clueless, that genuinely has a legitimate chance at becoming the defining coming-of-age comedy for its generation. And those movies don't come along very often. There's a lot of teen comedies and there's a lot of coming-of-age comedies, but there aren't a whole lot like a Mean Girls or even a Superbad that can really grab hold with a group of people, usually teenagers in high school, and become that movie that they latch onto that becomes their movie. I think that Booksmart is one of those films. I think it's going to find, or I hope that it's going to find, a really big and devoted and passionate audience. I really enjoyed it, and I recommend that you go see it. Of all the new releases this weekend, Booksmart is the one that I would definitely recommend that you go see above all the others. Another film opening this weekend is Brightburn, pretty much the polar opposite of Booksmart. It is dark, it is grim, it is what if Superman didn't come to save the world, but came to destroy it instead. Director David Yarovesky helms the movie with a script by Brian Gunn and Mark Gunn. It's produced by James Gunn. And if you know James Gunn's work outside of the Guardians of the Galaxy film, you know that so many of the films that he's involved in as a director, as a writer, as a producer, have such a grittiness and a real kind of twisted sensibility at their core. And that's what Brightburn has. Jackson A. Dunn stars as Brandon Byer, a young boy who begins to realize that he has a lot more power and a lot of abilities that he didn't even know about. Elizabeth Banks and David Denman, who you might know from The Office, play his parents, and it is 100% a riff on the Superman mythology. Brandon lands in Kansas on a farm. He's brought up not knowing that he's an alien, and then as he grows up, he begins to manifest these different powers. The difference being that the film takes a really dark twist when Brandon's purpose on Earth is to take the planet, not to save the planet. It's a very simple concept. I'm actually surprised not a lot of other films have done it in this way before. There have been dark superhero films and things like Chronicle and others, but this is one that really takes the Superman-specific mythology and turns it on its head. It almost feels like kind of an Elseworlds comic, just unofficially, something that might have been produced by DC as a one-off or a spin-off comic series. This is pretty much what it's promised as. It promises a concept and it delivers exactly on that concept. If you've seen the trailers for the film, or even if you just know the concept of Superman goes bad, that is exactly what the movie delivers. It doesn't offer a lot of surprises, but it also doesn't really stray from what people are probably paying their tickets to go and see. This is an R-rated film. As I mentioned, James Gunn's work, usually the movies that he's involved with, have a pretty hard edge to them, very hard edge, and there is definitely a hard edge to Brightburn. There is a lot of gore. It is scattered, but it is effective. It is there to make audiences go, oh, which they did when I was watching it last night. But it's not overload. I found James Gunn wrote a film a couple years ago called The Belko Experiment that I felt was a little bit of an overload with just the hyper violence throughout. Brightburn selectively chooses where to go over the edge, but when it goes over that edge, it flies off of it and does not look back. I think the gore is used effectively throughout the films. It is sort of a horror feel. There are some jump scares, but I'd say more so than horror, it's suspense and terror. It's not so much about the gotcha moments. It's really about the existential terror of what if this had happened and what if this child that you were raising turned out to be a monster. So Brightburn doesn't offer any surprises, but it does deliver on its premise in an effective way. So I would say that if it's something that you feel like you're interested in going to see based on the marketing materials, I think you'll probably enjoy it. If it's something you're on the fence about, or if you don't want too hard of an edge on it, it really does take this concept to the extreme. So be warned going in. Even beyond the darkness of the subject matter, at times it can be a bit of a rough watch because they really are trying to get the audience to witness the horror of the situation and the body horror of the situation in a really effective way. So 3 wide releases opening this weekend. Aladdin I reviewed earlier this week. You can see that review here on this channel. Booksmart and Brightburn. I would recommend Booksmart of the 3, easily my number 1 choice for the weekend. And then Aladdin and Brightburn are both movies that are very different, but they also largely deliver on what you think that they probably are. So if you're a fan of Aladdin and you want to see it done, recreated in a good way, you'll probably like Aladdin. If you like the Superman goes bad idea for Brightburn and you want to go see Brightburn, I think you'll probably like Brightburn. But Booksmart, the standout for me this weekend. Have you seen all these films? Did you see 1, 2, 3 of them? What did you think? Which one was your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, stay tuned here on Fandom Entertainment, formerly Screen Junkies News. We'll be here with the reviews of the latest summer films and the other films hitting theaters every week. Thanks for watching. Have a good Memorial Day weekend. I'm Dan Murrell.